even if they don't come through our doors again for regular school year, they're really accepting. They're really kind. They're really nice to the other kids. It's a really, it's nice. And they quickly get to playing and doing activities together and playing on things.
I'm Nicole Holcomb, attorney by day and podcaster by night, a former educator, school counselor, and administrator, and mom to a 9-year-old daughter with dyslexia, who loves all things Harry Potter, Minecraft, and science. A few years ago, she was identified with dyslexia, and our life seemed to turn upside down for a while, quite literally. I created the Dyslexia Mom Life podcast to help you navigate the upside down journey of dyslexia. You got this. If you're wanting to thrive as a mom in this dyslexia journey, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. You're listening to episode 67 of the Dyslexia Mom Life podcast. I am so excited that you're here with us today, and we are going to be talking all about summer programs. I am honored to have on the show Ken Cressman. He is a 5th grade teacher at the Swift School here in Atlanta, Georgia, and he is also the director of the 3-week Summer Explorations program at the school. So Ken and I today are going to be talking all about summer activities. We're going to be talking about the benefits of a summer program and other options for parents. And so without further ado, I hope you enjoy our conversation as much as I did. All right, today on the show, I have Ken Cressman with us from the Swift School, and we are talking all about summer explorations. Ken, welcome to the program and to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to speaking with everybody today.
Great. I'm so excited to have you on the show. So before we get started, if you don't mind just, Ken, just introducing yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. I started my educational career, if you will, in a public school system in rural Georgia. And I was a reading EIP teacher and kind of decided that was my career path. So it was really good to find that within the first time that I landed somewhere. It was a really interesting and hard job. I learned that I really needed to go back and do a lot more work on my reading and learning how to teach kids that were reading, because all of my students were below grade level readers. And I knew I needed to do much more to be able to reach that group of kids. So when I moved up to Atlanta, I went to a private school that served kids with learning differences and language-based learning differences and dyslexia. And there I got training in Fort Gillingham. From there, I had been at some various private schools where I ran summer programs, and then landed at Swift. I wanted to get back into the classroom and work with students again and further what I was doing with my education too. So this was a really great place. And the opportunity came to run summer programs again, which I was grateful to do again. It's a lot of fun to do that kind of a thing, and a lot of fun to see kids that are coming brand new to our school, but also kids from the community that are families that might not be identified yet as having a dyslexia or language-based learning difference, but are noticing that their child is struggling with reading, and trying to open up some of those doors and get people started to on a pathway, hopefully, to get their child help. My overall goal.
Awesome. So you are the Summer Explorations Program Director at Swift. Did I get that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And
yes.
I'm sure you do other things besides summer programming. So what else do you do for Swift?
So I'm a 5th grade lead teacher. I teach science and social studies in our 5th grade here. That's pretty much what I've done. We meet as a group, and I've been a lead teacher prior to this year. And so that was something new for me, as take a leadership role. But that's pretty much in a nutshell.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So you said earlier that you had some experiences in summer programs even before coming to Swift. So before we talk specifically about summer explorations, can we talk a little bit about some advice you might have as parents, especially, we're talking to moms who are raising children with dyslexia. So is there any specific things, as, I tried to record this as early as possible. So parents, I know a lot of programs are closing quickly, but too, so if she's struggling to make a decision, maybe give some advice there. So I know this summer, it continues to be unique of any summers that we've had in the past. Last summer, we were all still kind of in shock. This summer, some are virtual still, some are, face-to-face summer camps and things. So it still looks a little different because it's been such a different school year. But if you could maybe give some general advice, and if there's anything specific as it relates to this particular summer, but as we as moms start looking for programs or just looking like, what am I going to do with my kid over the summer? Can we kind of start there with some general advice, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what Swift has to offer?
Sure. I know one thing that I often hear is from parents is, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if my child is dyslexic. I'm not sure if things, but I notice my child is struggling. That in particular, if your child is struggling within that, it's something to look further into. I would definitely say that I know that within our program, our kids, they're not always identified at first, but their parents are the ones that have said, oh my gosh, there's something going on. And a lot of them are trying to navigate public school system sometimes and trying to navigate whether or not there is an issue. And so that's always been a struggle for the parents that I can see that come through our program, our summer program in particular. I would definitely ask if you are looking at summer programs, ask what the qualifications are of the teachers that will be teaching it, what type of program they're going to be teaching. If the teachers are trained in Norton Gillingham, for example, I'm not saying that that's the end all be all, but if you introduce something like Norton Gillingham, and then the next year they go into something different, that can be really a struggle for the child because they're now learning different terminology possibly. I would definitely say trying to look ahead if your child's going to be getting remediation or some kind of programming to help after summer, looking to see what that is based in. If it's based in some other program besides Norton Gillingham, for example, then that might be a chance to look at other programs. But with often, just because it says a different terminology, and you might say it's for example, it's a silent E versus a magic E, for example, if you're looking at a phonics-based program, that can be sometimes confusing and depends on how skills are introduced as well.
And Ken, if I can, a while ago, you said something I haven't heard anyone say yet, and it kind of hit me, and it made perfect sense. Is a lot of times moms find my podcast because they suspect something more, or they've heard this word dyslexia, but they're not sure. And then others know they've recently gotten a diagnosis, or maybe they're a couple of months in, usually less than a year, maybe a little longer. But there are people that are listening that are like, I just know there's something else there. And so I love what you just shared, because I haven't thought about that, but from the perspective of parents who they know there's a reading struggle and they're starting to suspect dyslexia, that exploring some summer programming, not really, I mean, tutoring is great too, individual tutoring if some parents are going that direction, but having the opportunity to go to a program or a camp can also give them an opportunity to see it. Is there a bigger connection? Is there something more going on? And then start seeing where there's other schools that may provide better resources and intervention and instruction for their children. So I haven't thought about that from that direction, but I can see even for, I interviewed a lady not too long ago, and she said, we were told in May, my child was dyslexic. We'll see you in August. And she said, I was like, what am I supposed to do all summer? And so there could be some people in that position, some moms that are either really have a strong suspicion, maybe they realize there's some dyslexia in their family, maybe even, or maybe they're in the middle of the evaluation and they're either about to be told, or they're told in May, or they're told last week. And they're like, okay, but there's not enough school time to do anything right this minute. So Ken, I appreciate you sharing that, because no one said that yet. And I think that is, I hadn't even thought about it, but that's a perfect opportunity for parents to start learning more themselves, but also giving their child that exposure they need to Orton Gillingham. And at the same time, for those that don't know, Swift is a school that is a dyslexia school is what I like to call it. Y'all probably have a better terminology, speech language or something. But I say that, and you can share that in a moment. I say that, though, to say that they're going to be at home around them because all the kids are going to get it. Finally, they're in an environment where the kids get it.
Yeah, one of the things that, and to your point, one of the things that I also would share is that when you're talking to these schools or talking to summer programs, it should be some of the, I've had parents that I've spoken with that don't even come through our program. However, the people that are in these programs are really willing to, hey, this is what I think, even if let's, for example, if a program's full, that person who's in charge of that program or somebody within that school or program should be able to talk to you. And that's a great sounding board. That's definitely a program that is what I consider to be a helpful program. Even if you don't cross their threshold, they're still going to be able to help. And I'd say a lot of parents, trust your gut on what you're seeing and what you're noticing your child struggle with. Parents are our best indicator for issues. If worse comes to worse, you've given your child just another perspective on how to look at words. So it's just a different way to kind of look at helping your child. And I'm sure that even going into this past year, there are kids that are probably struggling with reading that might not be diagnosed with dyslexia, but they're struggling because they've missed out on exposure. So that's another big thing, is that as much exposure as you can get is really good for your child.
Right. That makes sense too. So let's talk about the Summer Explorations program at Swift. What are the dates that the program's going to run this summer?
It is July 6th through the 23rd, July 6th to 23rd.
All right. So we got some time off in June. Everybody can relax and recharge and then jump back in and get some good work done and get prepared for that first week of school. So hopefully they'll go into that refreshed, relaxed, but then also a little prepared. So maybe a little less anxiety that first day of school would be great. So let's talk through what a typical day looks like for a summer exploration program. And I understand you have different programs running. So maybe let's start there. Let's talk a little bit about what are the different programs you have available, and then maybe spend a few minutes just explaining what those look like.
Sure. So we do have programs that runs for rising first through fifth grades, and that's all kind of underneath that umbrella of summer explorations. And for a typical day on that, students arrive around 8:15 to 8:30 in the morning. They're immediately going into their classroom with a teacher from that is from the school or from that has been trained in Orton Gillingham. And then they are, depends on the grade level, they are most likely right off the bat going into some kind of phonics-based instruction right off the bat. Either in an introductory activity, they might be doing some reading component right off the bat when they come here. And then, so that's a first segment. Within the day, there are 3 academic segments that we have. Interspersed, there's a set of fun activities that is going on. So it kind of breaks up the day a little bit better for a student that oftentimes I hear too, my child did not want to come to camp.
Right.
We try, because it's you drive up to the camp and maybe their vision is camp and it's outdoor and fun, and then all of a sudden you're pulling up to a school.
Yeah, I got that at home too. Am I going to summer school? No, we're not going to summer school. But if you I can see how it can feel that way. But no, that's not what we're doing. Yeah.
And we try to intersperse those times where they get a break. There's things like music and art and building things and doing some fun movement pieces that are interspersed throughout the day within the summer program. And then they also have a lunch and they have a recess time. So there's these little breaks that they have in the day that kind of help break up that day, make it a little bit more palatable for our students that might have struggled all year. And usually they like that part of it, but usually they're a couple of times I've heard from some of the students, it's I hate to say it this way, but I'm not dumb. This is something that's taught at the way that I learn, the way that I think. I get it. And it's great to see that excitement of those kids when they're seeing that and they're being teached and things.
And they start having that love for learning again, where they had such a difficult road and had started seeing some real obstacles. And for many kids, they struggle throughout the day. So to have some success and with it and have it tied to something that they consider to be school, if you will, in quotes, but something that's more educational or instructional, when they start seeing those gains, that success, it really does, it really does excite them. And that's what I hope for my daughter as well, is really not that she get a particular grade, but that she finds exploration and love for learning. And unfortunately, kids with dyslexia, especially if they're not identified as early as possible, can really, just hit that roadblock and just kind of give up. And so it's good for them to have another opportunity through a summer program to kind of reignite that and have that love of learning again, because it really can be fun. I mean, it really can be.
Yeah. And we try to theme it as well. So like the theme this year is imagination.
I love that.
Very broad, but what we hit, we talk about some of the people that are imaginative and creative and them being dyslexic, just for example, like Walt Disney and people that have these imaginative, creative brains that they think differently. And we try to emphasize to our students, we think differently as a group of just kids that are dyslexic. And that's great. You come up with some really fun, unusual things. Just for example, today when I was teaching today, I had a student that we're talking about plant cells. And they come up often with these things, these questions that are very thoughtful. Like, for example, I had a student today. Well, Mr. Cressman, we're talking about vacuoles, which store things in plants. And within that, and she said, well, Mr. Cressman, do cactuses have bigger vacuoles than, for example, like a tulip? And the question, I didn't know the answer to that. I was pretty sure that they have a bigger storage place for water within cactuses, but I didn't know.
Right.
So that excites me too. And I know it excites a lot of our teachers as well when you get to see those kids. Oh, yeah, they're thinking about things. They're really...
Those deep thinkers, as critical thinkers. Yeah.
It's not, I've taught, both kids that are struggling readers and things, but they're usually a group of kids that really do well with these deep thinking, deep thoughts within things. And you can really press them on what things mean much later on than, themes of things much earlier on than some of our students that are typically a typical reader.
Right, sure. And what is your camper to teacher ratio? I mean, are the groups pretty small, or how do the groups look? Are you grouping them by grade level or ages, or how are they grouped?
It's by grade level. We try to get as much information from the parents, teachers, and if they do have a psycho ed they're willing to share with us, we do try to get those pieces as well, so that the teachers and I can help group students into where they need to be. So we group by grade level. It's a 1 to 7 ratio. So 1 teacher, 7 students. For the Orton Gillingham piece, the reading piece, we also we split the class usually. So we have a group of maybe 3 or 4 students in a classroom working with 1 teacher, and then I have another teacher that's a kind of a pull-out teacher that students might be working with. Typically, sometimes we have some students that have never had Orton Gillingham.
Mm-hmm.
If a group has had it already, a good way to kind of split that class up.
Yeah.
And we do assessments right when they come in. So we do brief assessments on the first day that they're here, to kind of get a sense of, hey, this is kind of where we need to head with this. It also helps, do we need to move a child around a little bit possibly to make sure that they get the best experience out of there as possible in the short time that we're in summer programs.
Right. So in the past, I know that not all your campers are your students, but I imagine a large majority of them are. For the students that have gone to the summer explorations and they return in the fall, what are some benefits or some gains? What are you seeing from a teacher perspective as far as your students? I mean, you kind of have a captive audience there, right? I mean, I know some of them, probably those that didn't go to camp, probably either went to a different camp, perhaps out of state, or maybe even did individual tutoring. So I know that's kind of like apples to oranges. But for the students that had that consistency for those weeks at your building, I would imagine, especially for new students, you could really tell a difference just because they kind of had a little bit of a quick start there. But what are you seeing as far as confidence, as far as benefits and gains for the students that are able to be part of the summer exploration program?
It's a great kickstart to the year. So, and they're able to get exposure to the methods and ways that we teach within our school, and some of those multi-sensory pieces that help students really learn and pick up the skills. One of the really big things too is I see is making connections to the teachers within the school. I teach fifth grade and have for the past several years, but there's several. They're now going to be rising third graders, but several of those students came through camp, and every time I see them in the hallway, it's hey, Mr. Cressman, and just very excited and relaying stories of camp and the experiences and fun they had within it, and it's great to hear that excitement. And that was, it was not even last summer. That was 2 summers ago.
Right. And they're still remembering it. Yeah.
Yeah. They still remember me too. So, I don't see them on a regular basis, but
right.
See, so.
Yeah. And I can imagine too, for students that especially students that are new to your building, it takes that anxiety away because they already kind of know their way around when they get there on the first day, or for families that are maybe exploring different schools, trying to figure out what would be a good fit. It really does help, I would imagine, with that, just that angst that everybody has. I mean, we all have it on the first, especially even when you're teachers. I'm a former teacher. It's just that anxiety the first day of school. But I would imagine for kids that are new to your building, it at least takes that down, like you said, a kickstart, but at least it takes it down because they don't have to worry about the familiarity. They know where the lunchroom is off to the side. They know where they can go out. They know kind of a little bit of the routine, even if they didn't get to know their teachers. But just getting familiar with the environment and the surroundings, I would imagine is very helpful for kiddos too.
It is. And getting to know some of those peers that they might be in class with. That's also a really great thing that they get to see some of those kids. And for the most part, the kids are really, it's neat to see they're really on, and the best way to think is a level playing field with other kids. These are kids that are all struggling with reading, and they even if they don't come through our doors again for regular school year, they're really accepting. They're really kind. They're really nice to the other kids. It's a really.
They can kind of let their guard down, right? They can just kind of be themselves.
It's nice, and they quickly get to playing and doing activities together and playing on things. And I know that there was families that had, set up play dates after camp and after things. I hope that continues because that was really neat. Even if a play date with another child that doesn't even go to school here and one does. So
right, that's nice. Yeah, it's good to keep those relationships. That's nice to have the other families and other students that they can reach out to and make those relationships with. That's good. Because it does feel very isolating and alone, although we know we're not alone, but it's hard when you're in the middle of it. Like, it just, as a parent, it feels so isolating. And I can only imagine how the kid feels, as far as just, especially if this school year, there are many kids that are behind in general, but for our little dyslexic kiddos, I imagine this has been a struggle this year. And I know I interview people in all kinds of different states. And every time I talk to someone, even in Georgia, everything is just different. There's really no uniformity anymore. There's, hybrid, and there's virtual, and there's face-to-face. And then there's, hybrid 2 days a week at school and the other days at home. It just looks so different. And so this has been such a stressful time for, our kids in general. It's just been a stressful time for them and for families. And so to have that, that summer program where they can go and feel like they belong there and they feel welcomed and a warm environment, that, can make all the difference to spark that love for learning again, or at least, if not that, a little twinkle of creativity, of interest, of maybe I do like science, maybe I do like this. So just getting them excited about a subject is amazing as well. So what are, what are some things that you enjoy about camp? Do you have some favorite pieces about camp or about the summer explorations program that you're like, this is like my favorite part of what we do?
For one of the big things is for me is being able to greet the students in the morning. So there's usually a helper, but it's usually me in the summer that's greeting the kids as they come in, and then at the end of the day. We've had to modify some things with what we're doing. Usually we have a camp-wide activity at the end of the day, but this summer I'm going to be setting up stations. So when they go out for recess, they'll have these things where they can explore and do some fun activities with their teachers. So just a little bit different approach to it than in our past, but still a way to and I love doing those types of things where we set up 2 summers ago, we set up a thing where they did these giant tie-dyed ice cube sheets. So they took these sheets that were laid out on the lawn, and they put ice cubes of all different colors on this and let them melt. And then they had this creation of this whole big tie-dyed sheet thing that we hung up in our dining hall. And so that was neat to see them, for example, do some things like that.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. I bet they enjoyed that too. Just, getting to do something different than it feels a little bit less like school, right? Yes. But they're learning, but they're enjoying and having fun, because we want them to also enjoy their summer some as well. So let me ask you this last question, Ken.
Sure.
So for moms that are listening, especially those that are kind of new to dyslexia and kind of, new to this whole, I'm not sure what to do first. I know you probably work with a lot of families and you have for many years. When you think about a family who's just recently found out their child's dyslexic, and there's just all the feelings and all the emotions and just a lot to process, do you have any parting advice for families who are just starting out on this journey?
I go back to just ask questions and ask as many people as you can. I think that's important. And I think too, reaching out to parent groups, reaching out and listening to things like your blog and things like that. I think that's such an important thing, is to get education and also realize that you're not out there by yourself. It's such and like I said, that many of the people that are out there, even if you never cross the threshold of SWIFT, I've talked to multiple parents this year that they have questions, and that's part of my job. That's part of my job, is trying to help you and educate you and answer questions. Don't be afraid to ask what's the next step? What should I do next? I have this hunch, this feeling that there's something going on, that my child is struggling. What's the next step? That's a big question to ask.
Yeah. And I love that too, Ken, because, when you think about, unfortunately, the way the world works right now anyway, is that public schools don't always, and we can both say this, right? We both worked in public schools. So public schools don't always understand what a dyslexic learner might need. And so there are many parents that meet many obstacles, unfortunately. But I appreciate what you were sharing a few minutes ago, because even if you're not sure where to go next, or you're not sure, like for us, we relocated to go to one of these schools in Atlanta. So we moved from like we moved like 60 miles across Atlanta to make this happen. I know not everybody can do that, right? But there could be schools in your area, depending on where you live. Reach out to them. Like you were saying, I love that bit of advice, because we're all giving. We all want to be givers. We all want to give back. We all want to help parents. And even, just like you said, more information, referring to a website, or maybe there's a local tutor that a lot of the public school families are using that's highly reputable. There's just so many things that even if a family is not sure that a specific school, as far as an immersion school, or some private schools will have programs within their schools, it's just so important to ask those questions, like you were saying, and ask about qualifications of teachers, but just keep asking the questions. But don't be afraid to reach out to a school like Swift and say, I don't know what I need to ask. I'm not sure what to do next. Or I'm looking at X school district. If you're here in Atlanta, we all know the school districts that are dyslexia friendly and not, if there is even such a thing in public school right now. But, so I appreciate you pointing that out, though, because some families may not even think to pick the phone up and call their local Swift school and say, I'm not sure if your school's right for us, but I have a diagnosis and I'm not sure what to do. And, because you are in this business, you have resources, and resources, and who you can get families in touch with. So even if, like you were saying, the program doesn't work out, either for location or whatever, it may be that you can refer them somewhere else. And I know, like you said, there are many schools. I would say, I'd have to make a bet on it, but I would say majority, if not all, schools that teach dyslexics are more than welcome, no matter what state you live in, to try to point you in a direction. And if you're in a situation where it might not be a good fit, they'll probably tell you off the record, you might want to have some deep conversations about that, because we all know where you are locally. If you are connected in the dyslexia world, you know which school districts are just not dyslexic friendly, that you may have to have an advocate. But I love that you shared that piece about reaching out and asking the questions, because we're here to help. We're not here to make it more difficult. This is what we do. We know that these learners are amazing, and we want them to be successful. So I appreciate you sharing that.
No problem. Got to.
All right. Any other last thoughts about summer explorations? I think we've covered it all, but I didn't know if there's anything else that I missed.
Not that I can think of.
Okay. I'll put all the links in the show notes so they can go and take a look at the programs. And I'm sure there's contact information. We'll make sure that's on there as well. And Ken, I so appreciate you. It was so nice to talk with you today. And I hope you have a fantastic summer. And thank you so much for being part of this summer explorations program. It's great to hear about what Swift is doing.
I appreciate it. Thanks for giving me the time today to talk. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the show today. And again, just a reminder, if you're looking for resources, you can go to dyslexiamomlife.com/start here. And if you want more information for this particular episode, you can grab the show notes at dyslexiamomlife.com/episode 67. I hope you have a fantastic day, and remember, you got this.